Trying to get more light.
Okay, everybody, welcome to Behind the Scenes. We are, wow, we're August 30th, which is unfathomable to me. I just don't get it. And I don't know, like, does that ever change where like the time just continues to fly and fly and fly and fly? I find it very unnerving. Okay, today we are going to talk about and this was a conversation that was going on our Facebook group about like when our kids say they have a stomach ache or they have a headache or something, and it's really a physical response to stress and anxiety, which we can't manage to pull away from the conversation about stress because it's just so prevalent and, no one really knows what to do about this. Well, that's not true. People do know what to do about it. But as parents, we don't have some natural intuition on the right way to respond to stress. So we're going to talk about what our reaction is to stress and what our kids' reaction is to stress. So I had to think about mine, not because I am not clear that I have tremendous stress, but I don't have a stomach ache and I don't get a headache. But I do get kind of into my own space. And when other people try to jump in with help, I really have, I want them all to go away, basically. Like that to me is I need a moment. I need time to get my head around what's going on and is there a solution and how am I going to handle this? And typically me too, like to jump in and see if I can help somebody solve whatever that moment is. So, if you guys are around when it's going on, best thing to do is is walk away. And my example is that when my kids were little, I had a few that were very public tantrumers, and I just was not good. I didn't mind that they tantrumed at home, but the public nature of it threw me. And someone came up to me one time and said, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" Which is the perfect thing to say, right? And I said, "Yes, what you can do is pretend like you don't know me." and that's pretty much how I deal with stress. Like, just don't see it, don't acknowledge that you're seeing it, and then I will somehow figure out how to navigate it. And maybe I'll think of something about my kids when all of you jump on to tell me your stuff, but I'm going to go to Mindy.
Thanks, Sue. Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. I'm not a good person when I'm under stress because I get angry. That's sort of my default. I just, I don't know if angry is the right word, but irritable, snappy. I'm not a person you want to be around. So when I get stressed, I think the best thing is I probably just need to be by myself and figure it out because anything will just tick me off. My kids, however, I've noticed when they're under stress, they tend to get quiet. I have 3 boys and they tend to go more into themselves. And that worries you, right? Because I'd almost rather have them be angry because then you can discuss. Like when I get angry, my husband knows enough to say, okay, I know you're under stress. Take a minute. We'll talk about it. But with my kids, for me, the scary thing is they go into themselves and they're quiet and I don't know what's wrong. And I'm not sure, certainly putting it out there here. I know things are tough here if you want to chat with me. But although I know I'm horrible to be around, only when I'm under stress, I'd almost rather have them be that way because then at least there's some dialogue and some clear message. So that's my house. Any suggestions? I am wide open to them for me and my kids, although I know I just need not to get angry, but that's what I do.
Well, Mindy, I feel like you and I could be stressed in the same space because we don't want to be with each other.
Right.
So we can each go to the opposite sides of the ring and just deal with our own stress.
That's right. Just leave us alone. The other thing I do find, though, I will say quickly, I do find exercise will help me. Like if I get stressed, even though my knees will complain and my hips will complain, if I go out for a run, first of all, I'll sprint like crazy for about 6 yards and then I'll be exhausted. But that truly helps me. And I do find, now that I think more about it, it helps my kids also, that they will go for a run or they'll go out and do something physical. So okay, so there we go. So next time, Sue, we're together in the same room, tell me to go for a run. Okay, I'll pass it to Kamira.
Good morning. I have all of the physical manifestations of stress and crisis, and most of the most socio-emotional ones too. But I'm really, really good in a crisis because they're delayed reactions. So when the stress is happening, I'm solving problems. So if you have a crisis, you want me there. I'm solving, I'm quiet, I'm focused. But when it's over, my body is like, well done, now you suffer. um, our kids, I have one son who has all of the stomach things with stress. His stomach reacts to everything. So we're always constantly on the out. And you can tell because he may not tell you, but all of a sudden he's not eating certain things. And that's because his stomach is responding to the stress in his life. I have another one who's and I don't know if this, doctors may tell me it's not possible, but it seems to me that his immune system and his resistance lowers when he's under stress, and then he catches everything and things manifest themselves crazily on him. Like he gets rashes is how he responds to a virus, whereas other people may have a stomach thing. So it may take a while for us to notice. But dealing with it, when we notice it, we can say, you know what, you need to do something you enjoy. Why don't you go out bike riding, go outside and do something that seems to help. And as they get older, they're like, And my musician son has learned that rudimentary stress, just the stuff that happens maybe on a weekly basis, it's not a crisis, that he could use. He plays a wind instrument. He can use his breathing that he's learned in music, and that helps him get through momentary stress. So we've been trying to help them locate and find their individual stuff. But heaven forbid we're all stressed at the same time with the same thing. Our house is a mess. I'm going to move it over to Sharon.
Good morning, everybody. Well, this is timely because we're back to school, and my kids haven't been in school for a year and a half, and some of them are doing better than others with that transition. And my problem with my own stress is that I tend to pick up on the stress of the people in my family. And I start to become stressed. And I know that that's something I need to handle. And I do try to, because if I'm stressed, I, like Mindy, get irritable. And if I'm really stressed, I have trouble sleeping. So that's when I know if I'm really anxious and my mind is racing, if I'm having trouble sleeping, it's gotten bad, which is kind of unfair because sleep is one of the things we need to have to be able to handle stress, and then the stress causes the sleeping problems. So we also have been talking this week at our house about stress and exercise, because I think with the change to school, some of my kids got out of their exercise routines that they kind of gotten into during the summer. And I actually said to one of my kids this morning, have you exercised lately, like in the last few days? And they're like, no, I guess I should do that. And I'm thinking, yeah, because it does burn off that feeling of the jitters and the, that just like vibration of tension that can come when you're feeling stressed. It just provides such a good outlet. So, with school taking up so much time, I feel like there is a transition to remembering, fitting in those things that we know help us, but we get so busy or things are such, in chaos that we have to, again, figure out all over how do we handle this and how are we going to in a good new routine. So I think it's the perfect time that we're talking to this, and I'm listening very carefully to everyone's good advice.
Sharon, can we share some of the comments that we're getting? You want to do that?
I can't do that because I had to get on my phone instead of the computer.
Okay, so let me take a second and just share some of them. So Nubia says, what a coincidence. This has been one of the worst days, kids fighting for no reason. So we just want to send you our support and tell you, hang in. And if anybody else has any advice, Lori had a great response, which I think is fantastic, to Nubia. And that is, don't get on the roller coaster with them. You need to be the ground, which I think we've heard that from a lot of experts lately. Like, you don't hit their emotional point, be somewhere calming for them. So Lori, good instincts. And Leslie says the life aches. Stephanie says, I find word search calms me down. Here's some tips for stress. We'll put this over here. I find a word search calms me down, and going to the gym and punching the bag for 10 minutes or a walk, or emotional, go back and scream and count to 10 in the car. Yeah, those are all great. I think that probably the theme is when you get deeply involved in something that your head, like Sudoku or word games or something, it does kind of rewire the anxiety that you're living with. And then Deborah says, go for a drive and listen to music. She also likes word searches, phone a friend. And Stephanie says she loves us guys. Yay. All right. We're going to pass it over to Eka.
Good morning. So this whole topic started off with a thread about a 12-year-old who's having stomach aches and anxious. And it came, when I read it this morning, it just really hit home, because when I was in 6th grade and 12 years old, I had such stomach problems that I vomited all the time. And my parents were in the middle of a divorce, and my mother said she said if she knew then what she'd learned later, she probably would have taken me to talk to somebody. So sometimes, when you can't hold a single bite of food down and you're sleeping in the bathtub, like I did, we didn't know. So I understand that. And to this day, my stress is totally in my stomach. So when people talk about stress eating, I don't even know what that is, because when I'm stressed out, I can't eat anything and I just pace. So, and I just think and think and think. It's just crazy. And so what I have found, here's a little plug, and I swear it's not planned. It's my neuroscience. I tell you, it has been such a lifesaver. I put it on, and it's been helpful with so much of my stress. And I do is I put on my neuroscience, I listen to a podcast, and I knit. So those 3 things really just kind of bring me back in focus, and it's been great. As far as my kids go, my youngest gets migraines when she gets stressed out, and we basically would tell her, just go to your room, take some ibuprofen, drink a glass of water, and go to sleep. And that was helpful to her. My oldest one just bit her nails, poor thing. So when we would see that, we would just like chat, and we figured out that with her stress, if you just talk about things that are innocuous, it really helped, to talk about music or a television show or something to take her mind off of that. And so those are the things that I have. But anyway, I'll pass it down to Jen.
Those are really good tips, Eka. Thank you. A lot of those are things that I've suggested to my kids too, and I should take my own advice more often. I have a little short story that perfectly illustrates, I think, that mind-body connection that we're talking about, which is a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, my oldest was getting ready to go off to college, and people kept saying, oh, how are you doing? Are you feeling sad? I was like, no, I'm so happy for her. I'm excited. I loved college, and I think she's going to love college. And I honestly and truly did not have a sad bone in my body. And I kept seeing all these Facebook posts about, I'm so sad. I was like, that's just not me, but okay. Fast forward, dropped her off at school, had a few little tears when we left, but I was totally fine. I was so happy for her. The next morning I woke up and I had the flu, but I didn't have the flu. I had body aches. I was exhausted, couldn't get myself out of bed. I had to go to work that day, dragged myself into work. And one of my coworkers said, so how'd it go dropping her off? And I said, I guess it's harder than I thought because I feel sick. And it was then that I made the connection. I was like, oh my God, my body is cashing a check my mind refused to acknowledge. And once I realized that, I started to get better and feel better because, like many of you, I am a stress non-eater. If I'm worried or anxious or upset, I can't eat. And if I don't eat, I feel lightheaded and sick and not so good and cranky and all those other things that go together. So it's the whole big package. And what's even worse is that if my kids are upset, I can't eat. And I bet a lot of you feel the same way. Like they might have moved on, but if I'm so worried that they're worried, I can't eat. So just recognizing what that connection is for me helps me get over it quicker. And then I've tried to use that with my kids too. Like if I notice that they're not feeling great or they're, just dragging, I'm like, do you think maybe it's because something is weighing on your mind? Should we talk about it? Or my other favorite go-to strategy is, do you need to pet a cat? Or if they're not home, do you need to see a picture of your cat? Pet therapy, I'm a big believer in it. So just add that to your arsenal. Over to you, Jody.
Can I just interrupt for one quick sec? I am a stress eater. So anyone out there who's listening, don't feel bad because I am a stress eater. So even though I get angry, and that's
no judgment, Mindy.
No judgment, because hey, nothing wrong with a few Twizzlers, some chocolate, great bread and butter when you're stressed. I don't understand not eating. So just to throw that out there. Go ahead, Jody. Sorry.
It's so great that there's so many ways to be stressed, isn't there, you guys? Oh my. I also have to apologize because talk about stress. I am having my roof fixed because we have some leaks and you may be hearing a little pounding in the background, but I guess in the long run, this will all be worth it. I find it really fascinating that the things that we should do when we're stressed are so hard to do, and I go around the bend with this because I was always with my kids, well, go take a walk or go do this. And then when I myself a few years ago confronted a really difficult situation and found myself really over the edge, I couldn't do any of those things. And so I think that, I got to say, I think having a good cry sometimes is a really great stress reducer. And just, again, I guess what I've been thinking about a lot, with my kids and especially, you can give them all this advice. And yes, I wear their stress like a champ. I feel like, I absorb it. I'm like those Bounty picker-upper towels. You know what I mean? If there's stress around, I am going to get it and I am going to kind of sponge it in and hold on to it for a long, long, long time. But, I think part of that is, or not part of that, but, and I kind of joke with my kids, you know what, you don't have to be stressed about it because I'll stress out about it for you, which I do think helps them a little bit, even knowing that somebody is worried about them or whatever. But I mean, all of us have tried to find our things, and I'm not sure that I could add anything, although I'd be the one to walk the dog and not pet the cat, Jen, but, I'm not sure I can add anything to this list of things but I will say, I just think it's so hard, because you may know what you're supposed to do, but actually doing it to get yourself out of that, after you get out of, to get out of that hole is really, it's logical, but it doesn't mean that you can do it, I guess. And I guess, to Ekka's point, that maybe that's sometimes where you really do need to, call in some extra help or whatever. I will say one thing that I have found that surprised me, because I am a pretty independent on my own person, is that when I was going through this thing, when a friend would reach out and finally force me to do something or bring something over to eat that I didn't want to eat or whatever, I would start weeping, but it did make me feel better because knowing that other people cared about what was going on and everything was just, it really mattered. And so I think that's also, why I really do try to go out of way to, help my kids or whatever. But, so it is just a super, I don't know. I don't have any answers either. I just am commiserating with everyone because it was really hard. So.
That reminded me of one more thing to add to the arsenal. If somebody said it already, I apologize. But sometimes having them focus outward and helping somebody else is great too, especially for that middle school stress. Like when my kids were having a hard time, I would say, when you look around the lunchroom, do you see anybody else who seems like they're not having a great time? Do you think maybe if you invited them to come eat with you, misery loves company, maybe you make your own meal. And that did actually work for at least one of my kids. So.
Yeah. And another thing I just was thinking when Ekka was talking too, we have this book review for this book called Guts. I don't know if Jessica, if you can find it or whatever, but I sometimes with my kids try to get them to read something about, I'll just throw in a book there or something that might be relevant to one of the things that they're stressing about or whatever. And just certain things, or even I really like to try to write some things down that helps me, whatever. I really can't read when I'm stressed out because I'm too distracted to be able to focus on anything. But, just some ways to maybe get it out that feels healthy. As I said before, the crying. But anyway, that's Ekka, go ahead.
How Jen was talking about, Jody was talking about how you handle, you suck in other people's stress. I don't know if that's a mom thing or a person or like just personal, but I just feel all of that stress for not only my kids and not only after they're done being teenagers. I mean, I guess it goes on forever, but now I feel like I have it for other people's kids. Like, for instance, I have a good friend whose daughter lives in New Orleans. So, we've been texting since, for 2 days now because of her daughter being there during the hurricane. So I don't know if it's just we bring this on ourselves or we just can't help it or what it is, but it's crazy how I, like you, Jody, just absorb it all and it gets to me too. So I had to say that just because I had to say it.
I think I'm the only one that hasn't gone. Is that?
Go ahead. Yep, you go.
Yeah, I was gonna. All right, because I was just gonna say, when I get stressed, my first reaction is always to burst into tears, which then gives me a headache, and then depending on the stress, I get my heart starts racing. I start sweating. I can't sit still. And then if it's any worse than that, I get really, really angry, which most people know is kind of out of character for me. I am very hard to make angry, but if it's enough stress, I just get very, very snappy. And I found that the thing that works the best for me is to distract myself. And I'll just if I'm really stressed, I'm going to pull up some YouTube videos and just kind of watch them. And it could be a video that I've seen a million times. I usually look for it's an hour-long video about why Cats 2019 was not a good movie. It's something stupid, it's something silly. It's an hour long. It's one of those, I don't necessarily have to think, but it's just distracting enough that I can calm myself down to start doing some of the other, stuff that needs to be done. I don't know. It's always my go-to, and it helps the racing heart specifically is the part that really, really gets me.
All right. Well, I think we well, I learned actually. I also lived through racing heart and to the doctor to find out about my heart, and then it turned out Sharon. You got to mute you. Sorry, or someone text is typing. Anyway, so I went to the doctor and certain that I had a heart condition. Turns out that anxiety can manifest itself that way, and often we call it a panic attack. And I was like, no, I didn't have a panic attack. But yes, I did. And fortunately, my heart is good because I think it's a big thing to be dealing with the anxiety and not a heart condition. The thing I love about this conversation that shows up over and over again is that each one of us is going to find a different way to deal with our stress. But what I love about the conversation is sharing with people what you may give an idea to someone else. And I especially think that, Kamira, you put it out there with your family and you try and work through what is your thing? I have one kid who plays the flute, and that's always been her thing. You could see her retreat and pick up the flute, and you could see a physical reaction to that experience. And then I have others who do yoga and do whatever they have found, but we never actually said, what's your thing? Have you figured out your thing? So I love that as a parenting tool, to just sit and talk about it. You figured out what calms you down when you're anxious. I think, Eka, did you have something else to add? And Kamira does too. No, Kamira, go for it.
To this discussion, leisure reading. That's another thing we do. I do especially. And if they see me in one of my little cubby corners reading, especially fun things, not about what's stressing me, but really just really easy reading or rereading something I really enjoyed. And I try to get my readers to do that. I have a couple sons who are readers and some not so much. But the reason I raised my hand is I wanted to remind everybody to catch us again tomorrow morning, Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, Tuesdays with Kamira. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Ann Lyons. Ann Lyons is a professional organizer and productivity consultant, and she's going to help us learn how to grow organized kids. So you don't want to miss that. Tomorrow, same time, same place. Join us.
Thanks for remembering, Kamira. And also, our podcast drops tomorrow, Your Team with Sue and Steph. And we interviewed Ash and Aiden, who are a dad-son duo who have their own podcast. And they were I mean, honestly, I got teary so many times. I laughed so much. I told my husband about the conversation. He got teary and said, I want to do that with my kids. And it's just, it's something really, you know, I always know that there's a different reaction to dad and kids than mom and kids. And this would be one of those because it felt unique and it felt honest. And we do that all the time as moms, but nobody gets teary from it. Anyway, I'm gonna end with Christina's comment over here, unless someone else wants to. Afterwards, when my kids get overwhelmed, I encourage my kids to set alarms on their phones to dedicate 30 minutes to study and then 15 to 20 minutes to downtime and then repeat. That's great. It's so good you found something in your family that works. Okay, unless someone else has something to add. Oh, I think Sharon is finding her way back in. And I think we're done for today. Join Kamira tomorrow. And then every day when we're on at 10:30, we're going to hopefully remember to tell you what's coming on the next day. And have a great week. We'll see you here next Monday.